Hello, everyone. Happy week 9. Blessings to your journey this week. And this beautiful opening as we dive into the Akashic Records and begin to access them, prepare ourselves energetically, mentally, emotionally, physically to receive this information, as well as activate this information and pull it into our lives and see how it can benefit us in how we walk through our life, including a connection to our heart, our intuitive space, the information, infinite information we can access through this space in a given moment. So the Akashic Records are part of this, and when you do deeper work with your practices and or with medicine work, you can access this information any given moment, and it's very accessible. And so I want to make sure we hold this in a very deep level of reverence, as well as a level of accessibility, and not thinking that it's some pie in the sky thing that's going to be very challenging. So I want to go through some of the things, how we could prepare for that. The ability to really get into a place of stillness and get settled. And so if you're new to Akashic Records, just know that Akashic Records, as I talked about in the email, is really the book of life. And it's the information in book of life of every single aspect of how your soul has come into existence, not just this life, but many, many lives of all the access. The entire book of life of the creation of your soul. And it holds every single word, every single action, every single moment you've experienced in every single lifetime, beyond just the humanness. The accessibility as far as you've been a rock, you've been a tree, you've been an animal, you've been an insect, and there's information that you can gather or receive from all of this. And all of this is in the Akashic Records. And so it's a very powerful experience that we can do. And so this week we're preparing for it, and next week we'll dive into the different prayers to access it and begin to gather information. And so in preparing for this, there are some key points around this process. And know that the Akashic Records are a frequency. They're a frequency of information. And in any energetic field, there's three things. There's matter, there's information, and there's energy. It's not just energy. And so it's important that what we do through our practices is we raise the frequency of vibration that our container can hold energetically, mentally, emotionally, physically, so that we can receive the information of the Akashic Records and or the frequency of the Akashic Records, so that we can begin to guide through the information it's providing us. And so it's very powerful and potent. And again, the anchor of all of it's going to be your practices, like how you self-love to your own being. And all of the practices have different aspects in them, everything from chanting to movement to all of these things. But the most important part of these practices is going to be the stillness practice and the place to come into existence. So we're going to start off with having a deep sacred practice in our ability to connect to this frequency of the Akashic Records. And there are a couple of steps that we need to step into with that. And so there's 4 keys to the Akashic Records. And the first key has to be detachment. This can be detachment, being fully detached from the outcome of the process. And, intentions are beautiful, expectations are something else. And so it's really important to make sure you step into these with detachment from any outcome. And but intentions are always great. And so the second one is going to be relaxation and reciprocity, or receptivity. So the ability to receive and by being in a relaxed state during the process. So whatever process you need to do or aspects of practices you need to do to help relax yourself into this space is a priority. Allowing yourself to also be receptive to the information coming through. Sometimes it might give you some information that is completely outside the scope of your life currently, but it's going to tailor it back or connect it to the existence of your having. Remember that things can happen around this process. You might be shown that maybe there's a moment that happened 4 lifetimes ago, or a pattern of behavior that's showing up now in your lifetime because it hasn't been cleared, it hasn't been brought to conclusion or completion. So this is how we can use the Akashic Records to understand more about our life experience currently than the aspect. Akashic Records are not a fortune teller thing. They're not about going into wondering what the future is. And reason being is because we're co-creators of our life. And we can co-create any aspect of our life from that moment on. And so to get the aspects or information around asking questions about the future, it's not what the Akashic Records are for. It's more about coming into a deeper understanding about who you are in this moment and how you can navigate forward in your life. So the receptivity has to do with that, and really honoring the reciprocity, the giving and receiving of the records for that process. Third key has to do with beginning to be in self-trust. This whole Diamond Heart Project is about trusting your own inner being in any given moment. And so the self-trust, as well as trusting the records. You might get some information that has no scope around what you can understand, but it's okay, because as we work through the integration process, you will begin to understand it even more. And the fourth one is going to be ownership, like owning the information that comes through and not having to take a victimhood around it, around anything happening to you. It's always happening for you. And so being able to own the information, doesn't matter what it was or what it is, it's about really owning it, the fact that it's been part of the growth of your soul from this lifetime and beyond and before. It's really owning that process. And these are the four keys we need to focus on this week around what does those keys feel like in the system. How do we come into the space of being centered in that process? And through your practices, you'll access more information around these 4 keys. And so this week, like, really use your practices, your stillness practice, and invoke the intention of each key to feel like, what does that feel like in your system? Not emotionally, but what does it feel like to feel detached from any outcome? What does it feel like to be in full trust of your own self as well as the message you receive? What does it feel like to be in full relaxation of your being and in reciprocity as well as receptivity? And most importantly, what does it feel like to fully own your life and be accountable to yourself in every given way? So that's the practices for this week, and we'll talk more about it on the integration calls, and we'll go deeper into it and kind of answer your questions and go from there. So the second part of the video or of this week has to do with the practice of lucid dreaming or lucid, not so much lucid dreaming, but coming into a lucid state. There is a space between your deep sleeping state and your waking state, and there's this middle path. And this process or practice I'm teaching this week has to do with how to step into that middle path. And that middle path holds the infinite source of information as well as infinite source of frequency. And so it allows you to really come into co-create your life as you kind of walk in both worlds. And so through this practice, you're able to connect to it and be into it and be in it, as well as bring it into your life as you wake out of your sleep. And so, as I described in the email, like when you have realization that you are awake, not you are woke, but the point is like you are coming out of a dream state or a deep sleep. You're not fully awake yet, but you realize that your consciousness is here in this present moment, in this life, in this day, in this time. And when that realization happens, you have about a 3 to 5 minute window before you come into a full waking state. And so in that window, you start to count down with your breath. You breathe, and as you exhale, you go start for 100 and you come down. As you begin to navigate this space more frequently, you'll have to count from a lower number. And so, but you breathe in, and as you exhale, you count 100. As you inhale, you exhale, you count 99. And you just breathe into a space where you realize one moment you're not counting anymore, because you're in this lucid space between the worlds, and allows you to be a channel or a tunnel, if you want to call it that, or a portal to bring that infinite space that you were in your dreamy state with the DMT activation into this life, into the human experience, into your day. And it's really powerful and potent, and really helps you step into that manifestation energy, really helps you be potent around as being more connected to that full divinity that you were in the sleeping state, and access information quite easier in the full waking state or in the full live state of your day. And so you count down, and it's a practice. And there's times you might get to 80. It's not about getting down to a number, it's about counting down until you fall into that lucid space between both places or both worlds. And it's really potent. And we'll talk more again on the live call, but you can really gather that information. And people have done everything from manifest their dreams, to use that information or energy to win awards or lotteries or all these different things. It's really quite incredible when you connect to your divine path and divinity frequency and then fully encompass it into your system as you walk into the world. And that's what this practice is about. It's quite simple. It's an extension of what they call the Sylvan method, and we can talk more about that on the live calls. But hopefully this has helped you in some way, intro you into this process this week and next week, and move forward in your life. So blessings to you all. Love you. Have a blessed day.